Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. We started this show to really show people that there are ways to make running it more enjoyable and less of a chore. There's so much to enjoy about running and walking, and we don't think it gets talked about nearly enough. So enter Run for Fun. I'm your host, Leigh Spann. I'm a meteorologist at WFLA in Tampa, but I'm also a runner. And some of the things that I am still learning, I just want to let everyone know about. Because if I had known it, 13, 14 years ago when I had just started running and I was pushing myself too hard and all the things, doing all the things wrong, if someone could have just gotten to me then, think about how much more I would love it now. And so that's why we bring in my coach, Coach Maria, who is continuing to not only teach me things, but make me love it even more.
Yes, it's a process, isn't it, Leigh?
It's a process. It only takes, years, but we had a really, really fun weekend together. This is 2 weekends in a row we've had fun, but this is a running fun one.
I know. It was a very, very fun weekend, and we had such great weather. So I always love a good weather weekend because then true potential shows.
Yes. So if you've been following the show, we were training everyone for the BDR 10K, which was on Saturday in Safety Harbor. For Floridians, if you're listening to this from outside of the area, it was cold. It was 40s.
Yes, it sure was. It was perfect running weather. It really was so nice.
Yes, it was great. And so so those are some of the folks at the On Track tent. So that's Maria's business, On Track Running Academy. It was a beautiful sunrise. It was a beautiful day. And you were everywhere.
I was everywhere.
She was at a water stop. She was leading the warm-ups.
It was crazy. I think I had 17,000 steps, and I actually did pace my daughter's roommate in her 5K too. So I was all over the place. It's always so fun. It's such a fun event.
It's a very, very fun event. And speaking of your daughter, can we give her a round of applause?
Yeah, a round of
applause. Yes.
She completed her first half, and it was funny. She plugged her phone in the night before, and this is what we're going to talk about today, which I kind of love. I didn't get my kids Garmin's because I wanted them to learn by feel first.
Like a good coach.
Yeah. And Garmin's can come later. But so she does run with her Strava, which Strava is not the most accurate. It's a guideline, but it works. And so she charged her phone the night before, or thought she did, but the plug wasn't working. So when she woke up the next morning, she was like, I don't have a full charge. I was like, well, just go with what you can. And so about 5 miles in, it went kaput. And she was like, uh-oh. And so then she ran by a water stop and she was like, Dad, take my stuff. And she just threw all of this stuff and her earbuds and everything. It was so fun. And she just ran the rest of the race on field.
So and without a phone, I'm assuming that she didn't have music either.
No music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had a ball. She was smiling the whole way. It's kind of hard not to on that course because that course is just fun in general. And she knows so many people and everybody, our crazy water stops are fun. So
it was a very good water stop. I can't remember exactly what mile you were, but I said, I was talking to my running partner, Joe, and said, I think that's our friends up there. He goes, you can't hear Maria? It's like, I'm wearing headphones and I can hear Maria. It's definitely them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm trying to do the water and then cheer for people. I missed Christa and I was doing water stuff and I was trying to look for everybody, but
you did a nice job. And then we told people who listen to the podcast to stop on by. So we got to meet Jennifer. Jennifer is a frequent commenter on our Strava and on our Facebook pages.
It's great to meet her.
So we're glad to meet Jennifer. I had to actually, unfortunately, right after the race, I had to leave because of work stuff. But you said you got to meet several of the...
A couple people came by. It was just kind of crazy. I had people coming to me to tell me about their races and stuff. So it was just kind of crazy. So if I didn't get a whole lot of time to see you, I'm sorry. Come back next time.
Yes, we will do this again for sure. And so thanks to Jennifer for coming by. And so thanks to Maria, I got to what was known as a PR this weekend.
Yeah, a good PR. And she paced it perfectly. Pacing Leigh.
So what that means is if you're running a distance on, the fastest you've ever run that distance. So I don't really run a lot of 10Ks. That's 6.2 miles. I don't really run a lot of them. I certainly don't race a lot of them. So I had potential. I knew on a good day that I could, it was fun. There was a smile on my face for most of the day.
the 10K is a great race. It's a strength race. You know, you got to push yourself hard, but it's not quite as painful as the 5K.
Yes.
It's just painful in a different way.
It lasts twice as long as the 5K,
Yeah.
but you're not it doesn't hurt the whole time. I was really enjoying it. And someone else got a PR as well, and that is who we're going to bring in now. Christa Vogley. Yes. And she you have been killing it, my friend, as far as running is concerned. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found running, why you love it, things like that.
Yeah, I started about 5 years ago. So I think I heard someone on your podcast before call it adult onset running.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
that's me. I actually started going to Orange Theory just for, weight loss and fitness. And I was a power walker there. I was the kid with a note to get out of running in middle school and all that. So I never saw myself as being a runner, never thought that I would enjoy it. But there was a coach there at Orange Theory that kind of encouraged me to give it a try and had me run my first mile ever. And I was hooked. And she came to me after class one day and was like, "You ready to sign up for a 5K?" And here we are 5 years later.
Okay,
many
I was going to
races.
ask how long ago that was.
Yeah, it was almost 5 years ago. Yeah.
I have a lot of runners come from Orange Theory. So thank you, Orange Theory, for getting people to run. That's awesome.
Because it does, I can also remember the first mile that, I'd run some when I was younger, but like when I was training for, my first race and I was able to put that whole mile together without walking, it's in your mind. You know that you have, that is definitely a benchmark that people
Do you
get
remember
to.
what your first mile time was?
It was a little over 12 minutes.
Holy cow. He's so fast now.
So yes. So how did you feel on Saturday, for instance?
Good. Like I appreciated the weather. The hills were a bit much on the course. We don't train on a lot of hills around here. So, and I had raced the weekend before, so my legs weren't 100% fresh, but definitely the weather was perfect. So I still was able to pull out a PR as well.
She also did a great job at pacing.
Yeah, she did. She's like a super pacer, actually.
Thank you.
So that's great. Now we'll transition into helping other people get to to this. Explain first of all, Maria, what a pacing strategy even is, because most people are like, okay, I did all the training, let me get to the start line and just go.
Yeah.
And you can do that, but it's not a good strategy.
That's called show up and blow up.
Yeah. It's not a great strategy.
I don't recommend that all the time, although sometimes I do think it is a good strategy. There's lots of strategies in pacing. Right. The one that I don't like is when people show up at the start line and they don't know what they can run, because you really should, based on your training, know what you can run. And your 5K should be different than your 10K, should be different than your half and your 15K, and different than your marathon. If all of those times are all the same, you're not training properly. People just think they should be the same, and they shouldn't be. So you should be able to get to the start line and know within like a minute or two what you can do that day based on all sorts of things. And that's where temperature and dew point and strategy matter. So it's different for everybody.
Right.
And every day.
Well, and I just remember, again, I said at the top of this show that I wish someone could have told me, because back then what I think made the most logical sense was, okay, if I can run 1 mile at this pace, then I'll run 2 miles at that pace, and then I'll run 3 miles at that pace, and then I'll run 4 miles at that pace, and then I can do a 10K at that pace.
Yeah,
and again,
that's what everybody thinks.
When you're brand new, it does actually work, but you could, because you're just getting better in life at running. But I think taking it to that next level where it's not all one pace all the time. It's you're paying attention in training to different paces, but especially what you're going to do on race
It's
day.
funny because people think I have this like magic globe, and they're like, "Coach, tell me what I can run." I'm like, it's actually a calculator. I just follow the math. But basically what I do is I take each client and I look at their like recent race history. And I'll take, like, if I have someone like Christa, I'll take her latest 5K time, which I plug into either a Macmillan or a Jack Daniels calculator. I like Jack Daniels a little bit better. I think it's a little more accurate. But either works fine. And then that tells me what they're capable of that day. And I know that ahead of time. So that's what we're kind of training toward. that goal time. And then depending on the weather, I take that time and then I go to you and I'm like, okay, Leigh says the weather's going to look like this. I take the temperature and dew point, and that's when I take the calculator out and I say, hey, if a PR 5K is 23 minutes and then we pace adjust the 5K time, then I know what you can do on a hotter day on a race course.
Because and people, runners specifically, especially if you don't know about the pacing strategy, and you think, okay, well, my last race I ran this, and so then you're going to be frustrated at the next race because you couldn't run that, and then you didn't know to look at the course that there's extra hills. You didn't know that the dew point was 10 degrees higher and that your body physically can't work as hard. It's working real hard. It's just trying to keep you alive versus trying to make you go fast. So I think that can really frustrate runners, and not if they don't understand, well, why couldn't I run as fast when I'm in the same shape? Yeah,
and I would even argue that, like, a lot of people will say, show up and blow up. Like, that makes me so tough. And while there is sometimes you do need to do that. I argue that a lot of times that messes up your mental game because it doesn't show you what your potential is. And so then your mental game is like, oh, I tried it and I'm just not in that shape yet. When the reality was you just didn't pace the race correctly for that day. Sometimes you have a fitness jump that we're not aware of, and you can show up and things can happen. Like, my PR is still kind of a show up and blow up race because I didn't know any better. My 5K PR is still that. But I would still argue that if you show up and blow up, there's more potential there.
Yes.
There's just more potential there.
So, Christa, how many races did you do before you knew about any sort of racing strategy or pacing strategy?
A lot.
Yeah, exactly. Do too many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people just don't. I know that that's just not something that I would have ever thought about before. So I'm hoping that this helps. If someone is, that medium runner, they've been running for a while, they've been doing some races, and now they can figure out, okay, here's how I move to that next step. Here's how I make it feel
quite
great.
Frankly, like the old school runners, they show up and blow up.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand, like, that there's new data out there, and I'm always looking for new data. Partly because I've coached all over the country. So when I came down here, I'm like, what the heck? Why can't I run my normal times? Like, I was like showing up and blowing up when I shouldn't have been. Like, and I was like, oh, okay. That's when I started looking into dew point and started doing research on dew point about 10 years ago, because I knew something was up. So a lot of them don't know. So I would argue, even if you're an old school runner, like, try pacing yourself a little differently and see if you can get the best race that you can get out of yourself that day.
That's what I was about to say. So you're not gonna go every race and get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. At some point, you're gonna have to, pace adjust for whatever reason. If it's the hills, or maybe you had a bad training cycle, or the weather is bad, whatever it is. Yeah. If you just slow down and don't think you need to get that PR, then you can have an amazing race.
Yeah, and you can not screw yourself mentally. Yeah. You can know, okay, I have more in the tank on a colder day. There's a lot that goes into it, and the mental game is really important in running. So if you show up and blow up every race, it can really beat you down after a while. It just beats you down mentally.
So I wanted to show people, since again, this is what often Maria is definitely the expert, but I get to be the expert in this one tiny aspect of running, and that is about the weather. So, we talk about the dew point. So I wanted to show you an easy way to find out what the race is going to look like. And you can, the National Weather Service, again, it's a government agency. You can go to weather.gov, not .com, but weather.gov, and type in your city. And then when you get to your city, there's a little thing over there on the right that says hourly weather forecast. And if you click on that, then you get all this data, and it can go out 4, 5, 6 days. And so you can start, looking ahead that whole week leading up to your race. So let me show you what all these graphs mean. Okay, so the top one is definitely the one I consider one of the most important, is you're looking at the temperature and the dew point. The green numbers are the dew point, the temperatures are the temperatures. So the red numbers are the temperatures. And so you want the lower the dew point, the better.
Yeah, under 50 is really ideal.
Yeah, so this day it's 50s, but it's also very close to the temperature. So if the temperature and the dew point are very close together, basically it means that the air is saturated with water already, And so the sweat that you need to evaporate off your body can't really go anywhere. So that's why your body kind of keeps heating up. But as long as you can get the dew point below 50, even if it's close to the temperature, it's still okay because it's still the air is still dry enough. Okay, so look for the dew point. And if the dew point is climbing up into the 60s, you're going to need to rethink how fast you run that race. So that's one way to look at it. You can also, again, get a little more down the site there. Wind will get you. That was I had that happen with me at in the LA Marathon. It was a 25-mile-an-hour gust. We ran into it for like 20 miles. It was, and that makes it harder. I mean, there's more resistance. So
It's the same as running uphill, actually.
and and you feel that.
Yeah.
And one of the things, what most kind of counterintuitive, I love a good cloudy race day where the sun's not beating down on you. So you actually would love to have high cloud cover, that blue number, and low rain chances. I mean, you know, theoretically you wouldn't like heavy rain, but as long as you can have some extra cloud cover in there, then that's gonna help. So again, you can go to weather.gov for that, and it's you know me, I start looking at it as soon as that information starts coming out.
Yeah. I have a question for Christa. Like, what is because the thing that I love about Christa is that she does a lot in training. She'll have races on her calendar, and she and I work depending on the weather on what we're going to do for pacing. And sometimes we decide to do a workout in a race. And she's very good she's learned how to control that and really take into consideration all those things. What is your favorite way to run a race? Like, do you have a certain way? Do you like to do it by feel, or do you like to, what's your favorite way?
I'm a data person.
Yeah.
I have it on my Garmin and keep close watch on my pace. I've got my current pace, my lap pace. It's all there, so I can keep a close watch on it. And if I find myself going too fast, I definitely say, "Oh, slow down! Got to slow down. Calm down." So.
Yeah, she stays really disciplined in that.
So because I also am a data person, I'm gonna where I can say, okay, Maria gave me this plan, and it said I'm supposed to be going X minutes per mile, and that I can slow down. But you're saying too, Maria, that there's a time when you can say, okay, coach told me to do this, but I feel that I can go more than that. And I just want them going by feel rather than the data that's on your
I think honestly the gold standard in pacing is feel. It's in my opinion, like, we got to trust our bodies, but you can only do that after you've done races like Christa's done over the past, like, I don't know, how long have we been doing this? Like, pacing for races. Yeah. She will like do a tempo in a race, and she learns how to control it, so that the more you do that in training, the better you get at that. Right. That also is teaching you what each pace feels like in any condition. Right. So 8-minute pace is going to feel very different in 67 dew point than it feels in 45 dew point. And you learn that when you're doing all sorts of different races at all sorts of different paces. It doesn't have to be a go to the well every single time in a race. We learn it in training on the track too, or in fartleks or any of that stuff. But there is a time, like in the beginning of the race, that's when you burn the most glycogen, which is carbohydrates that's stored in your muscle. If you go out too fast, you burn through those carbohydrates too quickly, and that's when you hit a wall. And you can hit a wall in any race, I promise you. You can hit a wall in a 5K. I've done it. It's not fun. But you really do have to like know what you're doing those first couple of miles. Depending on the race, it's like the first 4 miles in a half marathon. It's like the first 3 miles in a 10K. It's the first mile in a 5K. It's the first 5 or 6 miles in a marathon. And you really do the longer distance, the more you have to pay attention to pacing. I was talking to Chris about this earlier, that it's okay in a 5K. If like 5Ks are great to test your fitness, because you can go out there and be like, I'm just going to let it all out. And if it doesn't go the way that you want, you need 3 days of recovery, and you can try it again the next weekend. You can't do that in the distance races. No. So if you really want to test pacing in your pacing strategy, do some 5Ks. It's really a good way to do it.
And that is hard to, it's hard to get people who like to run distance to run the shorter distance.
Christa likes the 5K.
I do. Yeah, that's my favorite.
And what makes it your favorite?
I think it's because it's over quicker. I mean, you can just go out there and give it your all, and you know that it's going to be done very soon. So
Yeah, we had this interesting talk a couple weeks ago, and Christa really is an ideal client in that we work together. Never ever should it be, I tell you what to do. Like, yes, the training plan, you should follow the training plan, but on race day, it should be a discussion. Where do you, what would you like to do? Where are your goals at? Where are you comfortable at? And then I will either agree or disagree. And then we come to and most of the time, Christa does exactly what I say on race day. But this one 5K, I'll let you tell the story.
Well, the hot chocolate.
Yeah, the 5K.
Yes. So it was a more humid morning.
It was like 65, I think. Dew point.
And she was telling me to, be at a certain pace strategy, but I really wanted a PR. Like before the end of the year, this was a race that just happened in December, and I had been working towards this certain PR goal, and I was 2 seconds away, and this was my last chance before the end of the year. So she had a strategy, but I said, no, I'm feeling it. Like I want to go for it. And so we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about it. And I said, okay, I'm okay with this as long as it doesn't mentally get to you. As long as you know if you show up and blow up, it's cool. And you can because if you show up and blow up and then it's a problem. And she said, nope, I know what I'm doing. I feel like I have it. And tell them what happened.
I PR'd by a lot, over 30 seconds. So,
wow. Yeah. I knew you'd PR. I didn't know it was by 30 seconds. And if you don't know, doing that in a 5K is very, So again, usually your increments are seconds.
Yeah. She trusted herself. And that's what we're going to talk about in the coaches drill, that you have to be able to, like, I'm not a magician. I do help. I am very good at my job and I can help you, but you have to know that you can do it. And she knew that day that she could do it. And then all of my bets are out the window. If she knows she can do it, then she probably can. Because the thing is, like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. That's like my biggest phrase I use all the time. And so many times people are like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And they're right. So
because they tell their brain that they can't do it.
Yes. So
well, what do you say to runners who say, well, why would I even do the race if I know I'm not going to be faster than I was on my last one? Like what that might say, like, well, if I can't be as fast as I can, why would I even run this race?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think there's so many reasons. One, because I always love to test myself. Like, I always love to test myself and see how much I can make it hurt, number one. Number two, there's always maybe the goal is to just get better at pacing. Like, I want to see how consistent I can be in hotter weather. I always break it down to, this is my PR in dew point over 65, and here's my PR in dew point under 65. Or I changed my goal that maybe my goal is to see how fast I can run the last 3 miles. Or I just change the goal, and that makes it more fun. That keeps it fun. And instead of trying, we are the only people that do this. Like, the elites don't do this because the elites are trying to win. Right. Right.
And they're all in the same weather condition. Yeah. They all get to the exact same weather.
And they all are very similar ability levels too. So it becomes about strategy and who's better at the kick and we don't have that. We're always trying to get that personal record. They don't care so much about the personal record. They only get paid if they win. We don't have that.
We pay.
It's like the one thing we're not the same as the elites on. And so the elites know they're not going to PR every race either. They know that they can't do that. So we can learn from them in that, but we can also learn so much about ourselves by doing workouts, by doing things in a different way. And a lot of times I'll tell people in the summer, your 5K PR in the summer versus your 5K PR next summer should be different. Like, in the same dew point, you just have to think about it differently, not so type A, which we all are.
Yeah. I mean, that's there's different goals for different races. And there are some, when you have the perfect weather, you feel it, that's when you go for the, your fastest ever. But other ones, you just create a different goal. You create a different, how close can I come to can I make it a progressive run where I get faster and faster and faster? And that's the win for me that time.
That's what makes it fun. Like, and not everybody can do it. What I want to ask Christa is like, how have you been able to set your ego aside in order to do that? Because I've had a lot of runners that say, nope, it's race day. I'm going to race as hard as I can, and I'm going to show up and blow up, and this is just makes me harder. Like, it takes setting your ego aside to do a tempo run in a race.
Well, I've always been like the person that wanted to please teacher, So,
Oh, yeah.
So if I know that you're watching and you set a certain goal
Yeah.
for me, I want to make you proud.
Oh, I have a lot of runners like that too.
No,
Actually,
so
yeah.
I want to do what you tell me to do,
Yeah.
So I just go in with saying, okay, the point of today's race was X, Y, and Z. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then I know you're going to look at it afterwards
Yep.
and see that I did that and
Yep.
be happy with it. And then I'm happy with it. So.
And then you're getting physically fit.
Yes.
Like you're getting more fit when you're doing a workout in a race, whether you PR or not. Like if you PR, actually, you're going to the well. Typically, we're not gaining fitness from that. So if you're doing a workout in a race, we're getting a little stronger each time. And there is something cool about that. Like we used to do it all the time with my old coach in Memphis. We used to just jump into races as tempo runs all the time.
And then it's assisted. You get water on the
Yep.
course. It's just your
It's
normal
a
old run.
great
But
way.
there's bathrooms.
It's a great way to practice, especially if you're doing like a distance race. A lot of times I'll have people jump into a half and run it at marathon pace, just so you can practice what marathon pace feels like in a half, and you can practice taking your water and practice taking your gels and practice your morning routine and what you're going to wear. And that's a great way to like also build your confidence. Every time you do a race like that, you're building your confidence. You're learning how to control that pace, and we're all control freaks. Like, let's be honest here.
We are. And we all like to make teacher happy.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
At least I'm a teacher's kid, and I like to make teachers happy. So yes, I do that. That is helpful. It's one of the things that I like about having a coach, is because I can say, as long as I did this, as long as I followed this plan, then that was a PR.
Right.
Basically
Yeah.
that's the same excitement, is I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when does this get into trouble? Because that does get into trouble sometimes. Sometimes I'm not right on pacing. Like everybody's a little bit different in how they handle hot weather, especially on a hot day. Genetically, we all, we're from different backgrounds. I don't know genetically how you can handle. I don't know where your brain is at. I don't know how many carbs you've eaten. There's a lot that goes into that. And I found out with one of my runners that was such a perfectionist that he would quit in races and I didn't know why he was quitting, or walking. He would walk a lot of races, or in track workouts, if I gave him a pace, he would just quit. And I'm like, what is this going on? And we finally figured out that he was a perfectionist to a T. And if he felt like he couldn't hit my number, it was over. And that's when we let it get to our detriment. And that's when feel is better. And now he has become such a good runner now, and he never has a pace plan. Never. I always say the first 5 miles I want to be easy. The second I want to be moderate. And then the last 3 should be really hard. And he does that. And he's had tremendous success running everything by feel, because you can get too caught up in the numbers. And sometimes you just have a bad mile. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean anything. Or sometimes you just couldn't quite hit it, and it doesn't mean anything. And and you give up when you can't do it correctly.
Right. And same thing. If you have a bad race, you have to just let that go. Too.
Yeah.
You can't carry that to the next race.
No, you can't. And elites are so good about that. They're just, go through the checklist. Everything's objective. Nope. Bad race. Check. Done. We are like, I had a bad race. And then there's lots of tears. I'm a bad runner. Coach is disappointed in me. She which is not true. I'm never disappointed in any of you.
Thank you.
But I actually sometimes, if I go out myself too fast in a race, I'm still mad at myself actually a little bit from 5 years ago, which I should get over it. But I knew I was in PR shape, and I went out too hard in a 5K, and I wanted to break 46 minutes in my 10K. Sorry, not 5K. And I hadn't done it in 10 years, and I knew I was in PR shape. And I got too aggressive and I went out too fast and I didn't PR because of it. It was like 10 seconds slower than my PR. And then one of my other runners actually followed the pace plan and she actually hit 45 and I knew I was in her shape. And I was like, dang it, if I had just listened to myself. But then I turned it around and thought, I haven't had confidence to go out too fast in a race in a really long time. There is something to be said to having some confidence and being like, I can do this. I'm going to go out and do this and take the chance.
Yeah.
Did it work out for me? No, but I'm like, oh, well, like there's another race.
There's
there's
another race. And especially we were saying, working with those smaller distances to learn what, when you're pushing as hard as you can, what mile 5 is going to feel like. If you push as hard, for the 10K, what's 5 going to feel like? So that, okay, if I couldn't get to 6, let's not get to where I was at 5. Let's figure out how to make 6 be the bottom of the well rather than 5.
Yeah. Or Christa had a tough time. What was that last week when she forgot her gel?
Oh my gosh, I forgot to take my gel.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So what was your gel plan? What was your fuel plan?
I normally take one every 3 miles. So I'll take one for the 10K right at the start or right before we start, and then one at mile 3. And I don't know. I just forgot about it. Like I had it in my pocket, and I'm used to doing a lot of 5Ks where I don't have to take a second gel. So I think I just forgot it was there, and started feeling very tired at mile 5. I saw the mile 5 marker and I was like, God, why am I so tired right now? And then it dawned on me that I had forgotten to take my gel. So I did take it then, but it didn't help. And that last mile, the damage was already done.
Yeah.
I wasn't fueled properly. I pulled out a PR at that race. I don't know how, but.
Just this past weekend?
No, this was 2 weekends ago. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Fueling is important too. I know you guys have already touched on that in a different episode.
Because, yes, I mean, it is part of the whole strategy. But today is just trying to get people to understand the difference between just running the same speed that you ran your training miles on. Every one.
Yeah.
That the world opens up for you when you train at different speeds, so that you throughout the race you can get faster, or you can do the workout that you plan to do.
Yeah, it's kind of freeing. Sometimes it takes a little bit of the pressure off, I think, in some ways. But we learn even if you here's a pacing hack. Like if you go out in a 5K and you show up and blow up, the last mile, if you blow up, that's where you should start your next race.
Yeah.
That pace is where you should start your next race, that last mile.
Oh,
It is true, because typically we go to that pace that we bonk to is where our glycogen kind of hangs out, and then you can push harder the next 2 miles when you start at that pace. So people don't really know that.
I would never have guessed that.
So I had a runner do it early in the season. I'm like, I don't really know where you are, because sometimes I don't know unless we race. And sometimes I need you to show up and blow up, because that tells me a lot, where our fitness is wise. So I said, I want you to go out and do it. And she was like, I hated that. That was horrible. I was like, well, at least now we know where to start next time.
Yep.
We know where to start. We know how to, sneak up on it this time. And sometimes you do have to take those risks. I wouldn't do it in a marathon, but I would definitely do it in a 5K. Sometimes a 10K, but
I was just thinking, we're talking a lot about science, and the science world definitely follows this. I mean, every time one of the rockets that, lifting off from Cape Canaveral blows up, they're like, all right, now we know what happened. They get, I mean, they never think it's bad that they literally blow up some sort of expensive rocket, because they're like, okay, these are all the things we learned. I mean, so they talk about, show up and blow up.
Yeah.
They're blowing up hundreds of thousands of dollars equipment. Obviously, that's not their plan, but wasn't our plan to ruin a race either. So they will say, okay, now think of all the things that we learned. And the people who do the hurricane season forecast, they always say that. If we mess up a forecast, we learned so much more about what we missed, what we could do better next time than if we got the perfect forecast and we're like, okay.
And why are we so afraid of that?
Yeah, when actual scientists were literally blowing things up.
Afraid of it.
Yeah.
In our, I don't know. Sometimes with cross country runners, I see it when they show up and blow up, they feel so much pain that last mile. They're like, oh, I never want to feel that pain again. And I can understand that can be detrimental, but pain is not bad. It teaches us stuff. I'm not a fan of it in the distance races, but at a 5K, that's.
So what would you say to people, Christa, who, like you've been racing now for, you started out not place planning about 5 years ago. So what would you say if someone is like, I don't understand, why would I do this? And what would be the benefit?
The benefit of pacing, just so you don't feel horrible that last mile or feel like you need to stop to walk. I mean, because that'll really mess up your time,
Yeah, tremendously.
Yeah. So controlling yourself the first mile and a half, you're going to feel so much better that last half of the 5K.
A lot of people don't trust themselves. Like literally, they go out with the pack because they're like, I cannot tell you how many people have said, if I had $1 for it, I'm going to bank the time. I'm going to bank the time because it's going to get warm later. And I'm like,
you try.
We've all tried that.
It doesn't work.
I mean, I've had a lot of runners, and I've had a couple runners where they couldn't get it enough so that I had to actually start the race with them and pull their shirt. And I'm like, let them go, let them go, let them go. And eventually when they get it, like I actually have a client right now who he was struggling with it so badly. And he literally, finally one day I was like, okay, at track, we're going to do this one workout for this runner. And he's like, really, coach, you're calling me out? I'm like, yep, we're doing easy, then moderate, then hard. We're not doing paces. We're going to do easy, moderate, hard. Everybody's doing it. And he's like, okay. And he got it. And then last week I had to be like, he's getting a PR every single half marathon every week. And I'm like, hey, we got to cool it on the negative splits. Now we're like progressive running every single run. And this morning at track, I was like, I want you to go behind him. I want you to go behind this guy. I can't believe I'm saying it because he's a good pacer. I had a new person come in. I said, just stand right behind him. And he's like, whoa, I get to be the pacer this time? I'm like, yeah. You earned that.
Yeah.
Like, you're a good pacer now.
Well, and I think that a lot of people get it. That I've me. When I say a lot of people, I'm generally talking about myself. When you see those people go past you in those first few miles.
Oh, it's
and then
so hard to
but then
hold
when
yourself
you
back.
pass them, the last miles, and you feel so strong, and they look like they are in their own little hell down there, and you're the one passing them. That's when it makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I let them go, and I say to myself, I'm going to see you.
Well,
see you in a few
and
miles.
mentally, when you're pushing yourself and you're going past people, it gives you a little rush. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. It's a lot different when people start passing you and you're like, ooh, I didn't do this right.
Yeah, even if you're
Poor
staying the
me,
same speed.
I'm sad. Yeah.
It
happens.
So the pace plan is a strategy for you make a strategy that can just be to be faster or to be your fastest or to get stronger. All of that is a strategy, and it doesn't mean that you have to use one strategy for every race.
There's lots of different
Tons
strategies. There's lots of different strategies, and try them out.
Yeah.
That's the cool part. Like, there's nothing wrong with failing. Like, failing teaches you something. And is it really failing? Like, I mean, is it? Like, to me, the only failure is not showing up.
Yeah.
Like, I think if we become too afraid of pain in a race that we just don't show up for it, that's when we fail. It's not making a mistake on a pace run. It's not that.
All right. Well, I think that you might be transitioning into your
We're
coach's drill.
transitioning.
All right. So here is coach's drill. Krista, that coach has thoughts on things.
Yes.
So here's we give
All
her
the thoughts, right?
give her a minute of uninterrupted thoughts in the trust yourself mode.
So a lot of us don't trust ourselves and our abilities, and I get it. Like, we all lack a little self-confidence in this area, and we can get better about it. But really trust your training and trust what you know you can do. Like, trust yourself enough to hold back and be like, okay, I'm going to have that strength at the end of the race. There's a lot of runners out there that don't trust themselves, and they're like, this is the only way that I can do it is a positive split. And scientifically, if you run a positive split, you could have run a better race that day. Whether you believe you can or not, you're not reaching your full potential if you're doing it in a positive split, unless you're racing an 800, because the world record in the 800 is actually a positive split still, but that's the only one. So try to do a negative split or an even split but trust yourself to have it at the end. Trust yourself, and you'll get there. Get that right on.
Right on it. 1 minute.
Dang.
Of trust yourself.
Trust yourself.
Trust yourself. So Christa has clearly been trusting herself. She knew when she was even, the coach's plan was not where she was. So that is, talk about trusting yourself.
She never does that. But I was so
One time.
I was so happy when she did it because I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, even if we show up and blow up, it's okay.
There was
Like,
nothing to lose.
No.
I needed that PR. I had 2-second buffer, and I said, well, if I don't get it, then I'm no worse off. They still have the same PR.
Yes.
So.
There's no,
Yeah.
it's, you know what? And with a 5K, just sign up another weekend.
Sign up for another one.
Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully, as we get ready, there's a lot of races coming up in the next couple of weeks. Or in the Tampa Bay area, we got the Gasparilla Distance Classic, and the Clearwater Marathon. I think is this weekend.
Yeah.
So hopefully, this is going to help people get ready.
Oh, I meant to tell you too. There's a new app
Oh.
that you can put on your Strava account.
Okay.
It's called Do Me.
DEW.
Yeah, and I think it's under construction right now because I've tried to download it, but a lot of people have it, and it has this thing called True Pace on it. It's what I really wanted to come up with like 10 years ago, and I didn't do it, and we should have done it, Leigh, but
We really should have done it. I didn't.
yeah, we didn't do it. But they take the calculation, the dew point, and the temperature, and they actually have wind too.
Yeah. 'Cause
So
it makes
you
a
plug
difference.
it in, and it tells you what you could have run that day
in
in
perfect.
perfect conditions.
I don't need to hear that.
I know
sometimes.
it's kind of nice because even on an easy run, it'll say, like, if you're running 10-minute pace, it'll say, if the weather was perfect, you would have run 9:15 pace today. And it's very good to get your brain mentally thinking like that so that you're not thinking that you're a failure. You're just like, oh, it's just the weather.
Yeah.
Oopsies.
Next one. On to the next one.
On to the next.
All right. Thanks, Christa. Thank you for coming
you
in.
for having me.
Congratulations on, you have killed it this whole year. So we're so
Thank
proud
you.
of you.
Thank you.
And we'll have a guest last year and then coming into this year. So
Yeah.
we've got a whole 11 months ahead of us to keep racing.
That's right. Let's
Doesn't
go.
matter if it's hot, cold, we're going to know our pace plan. Thanks, everybody.